Hi guys, it's Rose, and welcome back to a spoonful of geekiness. So I'm going to be doing a couple bookshelf challenges, which just involve basically a scavenger hunt to see how much stuff I actually have on my bookshelf. It's a lot, guys. These aren't even all the books I own. Now, I'm wearing my really pretty floofy shirt today because we're going through my bookshelf, and I have so many fantasy books that it's ridiculous. But I love it, and this makes me feel like a little fairy princess. And I have my really pretty like earrings that I just got from Hot Topic that also make me feel like a fairy princess, and my Hufflepuff necklace, of course. It's time to start the bookshelf scavenger hunt. Woohoo! Okay, so first book on the list is find a book that starts with an N. I'm looking. There's a lot of thes in front of an N's, so give me a second. N. Okay, so I only have books with the word the in front of the word N, so we're gonna go with that. And I'm going to pull The Night Circus by Eric Morgenstern. Great book. When I first got it, I sat down and read it all in one sitting. I stayed up through the night, read the whole thing. It's a great book. I definitely want to reread it soon so that I can give you guys a good book review on it. So, and The Night Circus. So the next item on the list is find a book cover that's mostly brown. Well, the one that comes to mind immediately is my complete Edgar Allan Poe collection. All of his tales, all of his poems. I love Edgar Allan Poe. Amazing, amazing writer, and because horror is one of the things that I love, Edgar Allan Poe. Obviously, book is brown. Next up is a book based on a true story, and I immediately know the one I want, and that's actually on my classic shelf, and it's going to be Seabiscuit. I love horses. Horses are my favorite animal. I hope my cats weren't listening to that. But so Seabiscuit is the story of a very famous racehorse, and you know, basically the saga of this horse's life, its breeding, what it went through at the racetracks. It's actually a really compelling story. You wouldn't think that a true story just chronicling a horse's life would be interesting, but it is. Next up is a book with multiple perspectives. Now, most of the books I read do tend to be in third person, or if they're not, I like to stick with books that have only one narrator. I don't know why. I just do. It's a preference. But this is from a series I love, the Shatter Me series by Tahara Mafi. And this is the last book in the series, Imagine Me, and it is from several different points of view of the two main characters and occasionally some of the other characters as well. So, multiple POV book. Check. Next up is find a book I read last year. I can include pretty much this entire bookshelf, except for the ones I haven't read yet. I'm gonna go with a book that I read last year that I really, really, really loved, which is The Hazelwood. I saw so much like talk and chatter about this in like book circles, and guys, it's good. It's great. I love dark stuff, especially like the dark fairy tales, like the originals, not the Disney versions or the dumbed down versions. Originals. So, yes, Hazelwood was great. I loved it. Next on the scavenger hunt is the most recent book I bought. So the most recent book I bought, I waited months for this book to come out, was House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. It's about these three sisters. Anyways, they had a great, very compelling book trailer. When, you know, they were starting to announce this, I could not wait to buy it. I waited and waited and waited, and finally it came out. Yes, so this is the most recent book I bought. It was really good. Once again, dark stuff, which I like, but it was really good. So next up is find a book cover that I don't like. And I have a couple on my bookshelf that I'm not too fond of, I guess, but I can say with absolute certainty that the book cover I hate the most is under this beautiful dust jacket. So this is part of the Immortal Rules series. It's kind of like, I don't know why I haven't heard of it before I bought it, but anyways, so gorgeous, gorgeous dust cover. But I take dust covers off to read because they slip, they crinkle, and I want my dust covers to stay perfect. So when I went to go take this dust cover off to read, I was like, ooh, it's so pretty inside, and then that. Trying to get the glare off. And I mean, okay, it's not horrible, but I don't know, it just seemed really cheap to me. Like, there was absolutely no thought that went into this cover whatsoever. The only thing I hate more than this cover under this beautiful dust jacket is when they take a book and put the movie that they've made from the book on the cover. No, don't do it. It annoys me. Ugh, like, if I want a book, I want the original cover art. I do not want your TV or movie poster on my book. No. So I guess those count too. But as far as the cover I hate the most, it's definitely this one. Like, there wasn't even thought put into this. It's literally just like a silhouette of a girl against a plain blue background. And I'm just like, no, look at this gorgeousness. On to the next. Okay, next item on the list is find a retelling. So I wanted to find one that wasn't a retelling of Alice in Wonderland because I have those in abundance. And it's actually a book that I got online for super cheap. It's right behind me. And it is called The Queens of Ennis Lear. This was a really long book. It read like, you know, very old prose kind of thing. It was very, very long, very, very tedious to get through, but it was so good. It is a retelling of King Lear from William Shakespeare. The Madness of King Lear, and it does focus somewhat on the king, but it also focuses on his three daughters, and they in turn descend into madness. So, and that's not a spoiler. Like, if you've read King Lear, you know what's coming. You know it's gonna end really bad. But, so yes, this is a non-Alice in Wonderland retelling that I own, and it was actually really good. Next up is find a book that is also a movie. I have a lot of these. As I mentioned, like, just a few minutes ago, I hate when they put movie covers on to the book cover. I don't like it. But I do have several other books that have been turned into movie. I'm gonna try to pick one that I don't absolutely hate the movie, because there, guys, the whole phrase "don't judge a book by its movie" is more true than I could possibly explain. But to go with a movie that I don't hate that's based off of a book because I feel like they really gave their best shot, that would be Eragon by Christopher Paolini in the Inheritance cycle. I love Eragon. I love the book. I actually really loved the movie too. I think that they tried to keep it in the spirit of things, even though they got so many things wrong. The first copy of Eragon I have, actually, I read it so much that it was a hardback, and the hardback fell off. That poor book is in tatters. It's still readable, but I had to get a new one if I wanted to carry it in my purse. So yeah, Eragon made into a movie. I think they tried. What more can you hope for when a book turns into a movie? Not much. Next up is to find a book that was published this year, and that's really easy for me because I really, much like the book that I've most recently bought, House Apollo, I waited months for this book to come out, and it finally did, and I loved it because I love the series. And that is, I have short arms. That is A Court of Silver Flames. That came out this year. I was so excited when it finally came out. A Court of Thorns and Roses is probably one of my favorite series that I've ever read. And I mean, that's a lot to compete with. Like, I mean, it's up there with Harry Potter and Mortal Instruments. And so, I mean, so good. So this was published this year. I waited for it and waited for it, and finally it came out, and I ordered it as soon as it came out. Actually, I had it on pre-order. So it was shipped to me as soon as it came out, and I was so happy to receive it. So, Court of Silver Flames. Next is find a nonfiction book. That's pretty easy. I do have a couple. The one that comes to mind is Go Ask Alice. And this is an anonymously written book that was written by a woman who went through horrible, horrible things in her life. And it's a very, very powerful book. She wrote it, she published it, obviously anonymously. Alice obviously is most likely not her real name, but it's a nonfiction book. It's really good if you just want a read on kind of humanity. It's a really good one. I highly recommend this book. Nonfiction. Check. Next up is a book that I literally tell everyone to read. It's kind of obscene how many times I've recommended this book. It's right behind me up here. And it is called Stain by A.G. Howard. I love this book. I now own everything this author has ever written because it was that good. I had never heard of her before, never heard of these books. Checked it out at a library because it looked interesting, and books rarely surprise me anymore. They very, very rarely bring back that joy of reading that I used to experience, you know, of just wondering what was going to happen next, and just wondering and wondering and wondering and being completely surprised and just delving into a world that was so well made. Most of the books that I had that feeling with, I've read so many times. They haven't lost their magic. Like Harry Potter will never lose its magic. But this book kind of got me jump-started into sincerely reading again. I recommend it to literally everyone. At first, it just seems so tropey. Oh no, it's Princess, she's in distress, and, you know, she has, her chosen prince has to rescue her for her to become her true self again. But it is totally not that. It breaks every single trope that you can imagine, and it has twists, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful story. I have read this book I don't even know how many times. I even bought it for my best friend. And she's like, it seems so tropey, and she's only like this much into it. And I'm like, no, you have to keep reading. You have to keep reading. So yeah, I recommend this book to literally everyone, including you. You should read it. It's really good. Next up is to find a book with a tree on the cover. And I have a few books that have trees like in the background or something, but my favorite tree on any cover I own is on this. Get rid of the glare. Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. They have, it's just beautiful embossed trees, and I love it. Not only do I love the original fairy tales, once again, that dark stuff. Just so opposite of me. Like, I'm a bubbly person, but you hand me something with darkness in it and like a dark overtone, and I will read it and I will most likely love it. So yeah, book with a tree on the cover, Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. Now, I'm gonna have to take an L for this one because it is find a book where the author's name is in any way the same as your own, first, middle, or last name. I have none. None, guys. So, big losing point for me, but the hunt shall go on. Next up is a book that I have read multiple times, and there's so many guys. I did already show you guys the one book that I've read so many times, which is Stain, and my rule for these book scavenger hunts is to never pull the same book twice. So what I'm gonna have to go with is Three Dark Crowns. I love this series. I have read it. The first book I read, I don't even know how many times. And the other books, I waited for like each of them to come out as they were coming out. This was a series that I followed, which I don't do. I normally go after series that are already completed. Only very recently have I started, you know, being okay with starting a series that all the books aren't out. But yes, so Five Dark Crowns, it's a great book. Great storyline. I love all the books. I love the whole series. So yeah, I have definitely given this and the rest of the books that go with it more than one read. Next up is find a book that you didn't finish. And guys, I'm a completionist. I try to finish every single book that I pick up. Sometimes it takes me a while if it's a particularly tedious book. And there have only ever been 2 books that I have put down and not returned to because I could not stand them. Either the characters were annoying or the writing was terrible. And the first one I don't own, and that's Twilight. I'm sorry for a lot of you tryhards. I could not finish Twilight for the life of me. The writing is atrocious. It's like, I think I wrote better quality when I was like 10. And that's not even me bragging. That's just me being like, this was bad quality. And that's saying a lot because I read 50 Shades of Grey just because, like, just for the posterity. And that was written badly. But at least I finished it. I could not finish Twilight. A book that I do own, that I can't, I've tried so hard. I can't finish it. I'm actually going to be giving it away or selling it or something, is Moonshine. Ooh, that looks so pretty in the light. Anyways, distraction. ADHD. Um, is Moon Chosen by PC Cast. Now, PC Cast has a lot of books out. She is most known for her House of Night novels, and I've heard good things about them. And I saw this book. It was $2 at the bookstore on the clearance rack, so I was like, sure, why not? It's a long book. It's the first in a series. Maybe I'll like it. I didn't like it, guys. I got about halfway through, and even that was a struggle. The characters are written horrendously, at least in my opinion. Don't come for me. If you're a PC Cast diehard person, I couldn't finish it. The writing was awful. The idea was good. It was good. The whole idea of it was good. But the characters were so underdeveloped. Stuff just kept happening, like, at a pace that it really shouldn't have been happening at. And, like, the writing wasn't necessarily bad, but the character development was. And I don't know, I couldn't finish it. I couldn't stand to. I'm so sorry, but Moon Chosen. Next up is to find a book with a king in it. And that's actually not that hard, since a lot of the books that I own are fantasy. But what I'm going to pull is An Enchantment of Ravens, which actually has multiple kings in it because it's all about the Fae Court. It focuses on the King of Fall and his adventures with a mortal. I love this book. The author, Margaret Rogerson, she's only written 2 books. She's written this and A Sorcery of Thorns. I own both. And I have never cracked up so much in a book. Just her talent for writing humor is incredible. It's amazing. I love it. So I love this book. It has the King of Fall in it, along with the other kings of the other Fae courts. I have a lot of fairy books. F-A-E fairy, not F-A-I-R-Y fairy. There's a difference. But, so yeah, as you saw from my shelves, I have a lot of Fae books. And this was one of my favorites. So, Enchantment of Ravens, King of Fall. Next up is a book that is purple once you take off the dust jacket. Now, according to my rule of I can't pull the same book twice, I can't pull Stain again, but I did find another book, and that is The Toll by Neil Shusterman. It is the 3rd and final book in the Scythe series, which was amazing. I loved it way more than I thought I would. But yeah, it was really good. So, underneath the dust jacket, purple, which is my favorite color, coincidentally. So, The Toll by Neil Shusterman is purple. Last, but certainly not least, is a book that I want to read by the end of this year. My to be read list is insane on my Goodreads account. But if I had to pick one book that I want to read by the end of this year, is actually a reread for me, but that's not what matters. The book that I want to read by the end of this year is Remember Me by Christopher Pike. This is actually 3 books in one, and I read it sometime in middle school, and I just recently bought it for my own collection because I just remember loving it. The whole basis is that a girl is killed at a party. She wakes up dead, and she has to solve basically whether or not her death was a murder or an accident or something else from the other side. And I really loved it. I've only read it once, so I want to reread this by the end of the year. Even though it is a repeat, that's not what matters. What matters is that I adore. I adored this book the first time I read it, and I really want to read it again. So that is all for now, you guys. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I hope you had fun coming along this with me, and maybe you learned a little bit about me from the books on my bookshelf and the books in my scavenger hunt, because I always find that one of the best ways to get to know someone is what books they read and what their bookshelves look like, if they have them, the condition of their books, all that stuff. I think it's important. I think that it's a great way to judge a person by their cover. Ha, ha, ha. Oh gosh, I'm so geeky. Anyways, so I hope you enjoyed that. I know for sure that this time I've given you your spoonful of geekiness for the day. Probably like a cupful of geekiness. So I will see you guys soon, and as a madman in a box once said, run fast, laugh hard, and be kind. Bye guys. Do you see this face? This is the face of being extremely annoyed by how much noise my family's making in the kitchen. My mic doesn't even pick it up. I am just hypersensitive to sounds. And my cat is scratching on my bad kitty stomach. And she won't get close enough for me to take off her dangly bell collar. My other cat is eating. And oh my gosh, I thought that they were done. They told me they were done. They're not done. I may look like Fairy Princess, but I would very much like to just shoot some tranquilizers right now. Just boo, boo, boo. At everyone in my house, including the dog. Because he can be annoying.